The haunted bungalow that I entered after marriage seemed more like a residence for fewer spirits. It was a mansion-type house with 2 portions and a rooftop. Each portion had approximately 5 rooms with a large courtyard in front of the house. The courtyard was filled with greenery and trees, making it quite beautiful. However, it was very eerie at night. In such a large house, only my husband, mother-in-law, and I live. I called this house a dwelling for spirits because it felt deserted even during the daytime, resembling the eeriness of the night. My mother-in-law was reserved. She would close herself in a room and engage in her prayers and rosary. My husband was at the office. I, being alone in the house, would wonder how to pass the time. The maid would come to work and do her tasks, and the cook would also come to prepare meals. But I dismissed them. If I didn't even cook, what would I do all day? Anyway, soon I realized that I had a major misunderstanding. There was someone else living here besides us. Someone who had been here for a long time. Now, I don't know if they didn't like my presence or if they were trying to familiarize me with their existence. I couldn't understand. Strange things were starting to happen. It was one afternoon when I was cooking in the kitchen. On that day, I decided to make potato parathas, and I was engrossed in making them. When I heard footsteps, I turned around, and to my surprise, it was my mother-in-law. She said, "I have some work for you," I asked, and she replied, "Cook some meat for me." "I won't eat it." I said, "Sure, I'll cook it." She left the kitchen. Suddenly, it occurred to me how she knew that I wasn't cooking meat at that time, because I hadn't informed them. My mother-in-law never inquired nor spoke about the cooking matters. She would eat whatever was cooked. Well, humans desire meat, so I suppressed the suspicion in my heart and took out meat from the refrigerator. After cooking, I arranged the food on the tray, parathas for myself and meat for them. Upon seeing it, she said, "I will eat potato parathas, not meat." I replied, "But you had said that you wanted to eat meat." She looked at me in surprise. I wondered, when did I say that? Upon their inquiry, I explained in amazement that you came to the kitchen and asked meat to cook meat. She smiled and said, "Place this plate of meat on the stairs leading upstairs." When I tried to ask a question, she silenced me by placing a finger on her lips. I understood. The matter was something else. Quietly, I placed the plate of meat on the stairs. The peak of surprise was reached when I found the plate empty that evening. There was no one upstairs who had eaten the food. He was someone unknown. This was my first meeting with him, and the strange incidents with me began from here. After that, often at my mother-in-law's insistence, whenever I cooked meat, I placed a plate on the stairs leading upstairs. Sometimes, sweet, I placed that as well. Then the plate would be found empty. I had figured out that there were genies here. However, they never caused us any harm. It was just that strange events kept happening. Sometimes the sound of a child crying could be heard, and sometimes it felt like many girls were laughing together. Sometimes it felt like a woman had passed behind me, which became quite perplexing. Once, it happened that I went to take a shower. At that time, my mother-in-law was sleeping. Just then, the doorbell rang. Oh God, who could it be at this time? I thought. In any case, it took me a little while to get dressed and step outside.
When I went out, I saw that my husband was sitting on the sofa.
"What are you doing here at this time?" I asked in surprise. More surprisingly, he looked at me, then turned back and, with a worried expression, said, "If you're here, Then who opened the door? Who was it? What does it mean? I asked in surprise, and he began to say that you also opened the door. Even though you were coming from the bathroom after taking a shower, you opened the door. I came home quickly because I wasn't feeling well today. I told them that I didn't open the door. Anyway, both of us, husband and wife, didn't dwell on the matter too much. We understood. Then, it happened that a few days later, I received good news that I was going to be a mother. From here, the events happening with me took on a somewhat eerie turn. On that night, my husband and I had gone out. When we returned and went to sleep, the events of that night were unbearable for me. It was an unknown hour of the night. When the door of the room opened, a woman entered who was tall in height and had a good physique. She was wearing black clothes. There was a mark on her left cheek, as if her skin had been scorched by intense fire at some point. She held a knife-like object in her hand, a dagger. She stood next to my bed. I was watching her, and it felt like my whole body had frozen. I could only move my eyes, and they were wide open, witnessing the grotesque sight. A foul stench emanated from this woman. She extended her hand and placed the dagger-like object on my chest, then, dragging it, brought it to my stomach. Then, with a swift motion, she lifted her hand as if that object would plunge into my abdomen. As soon as the dagger-like object, which was knife-shaped, approached my stomach, I let out a loud scream and sat up. I was drenched in sweat, and my eyes opened with the force of my own scream. My husband was still oblivious, fast asleep. Was it just a dream? I thought. But no, it wasn't a dream, because the half-closed door of the room, which I had locked before going to bed, and the strong, unpleasant odor pervading the room were evidence that what happened was not just a dream. The night passed somehow. In the morning, when I mentioned the incident of the night to my husband, he also became concerned. He said, "You should tell Mom about this." In the afternoon, when I sat with my mother-in-law after having lunch, I told her everything. My mother-in-law said to come to her at night. "I can see what the issue is. I know that the tribe of genies living in this house has been residing here for a while, and they are not harmful." This was a new revelation for me that my mother-in-law knew something about operations, and in this house, not just one genies, but an entire organized tribe of genies resides. The genies include beings of every age, children, elderly, young women, and they also have a leader. Well, I spent the day somehow. When I went to my mother-in-law at night, she started asking where I'd been all night. I said we went to a restaurant, and from there we went to a family park for a walk. She started saying that a wicked woman followed you from that family park and entered this house. And her intention is not towards you, but your child. She wants to take the child by force. Hearing all this, I burst into tears. She said, "Don't worry. As long as I am here, nothing will happen to you." She recited something and blew it over me. She said to recite Quranic verses for protection by creating a circle around yourself with those verses all the time until the child arrives in this world. Even after that, some bindings will be made. Well, I left from there, but I was very scared. Then nothing happened. I started reciting verses all the time. This is almost about the time when my 8th month had passed. I was going from my room towards the kitchen when someone forcefully pushed me from behind. My loud scream at that moment got stuck in my throat. When I didn't fall, I remained suspended in midair instead of hitting the ground. Someone had held me with 2 hands and saved me from falling. I sat there, My heart's palpitations were out of control. I began to take deep breaths. When someone put a hand on my head from behind, I tried to turn around, but my neck was stiff. Only the voice came. "Don't worry, daughter. We will protect you." After that, the hand was removed from my head. I turned around suddenly, but there was nothing there. Yes, there was a fragrance that was spread around me.
I often used to jokingly tell my husband that this house is like a haunted mansion from stories.
But this haunted mansion was now protecting me from the spirits of this house, which were genies. A strange connection had developed. Besides, many neighborhood ladies would often tell me that there is light on your roof most nights, where many men and women are seen walking around. Often, these things were told to us because everyone knew that only 3 people lived in this house. But no, that wasn't my problem. My problem was that woman who wanted to take away my child. And this fear had made my days and nights sleepless. In the end, I told my husband that we should leave this house. I also told this to my mother-in-law. Then she explained the reason, and it made sense to me. She said, "Dear, the genies of this house are protecting you from that woman. If you leave from here, neither can I confront that creature, nor can you. Let this being remain in opposition to those people. It shouldn't be that, after leaving here, you end up confronting that child." And this silenced me. In the 9th month, strange incidents started happening to me. I often saw that woman in my dreams. When I slept at night, she would wake me up. Attempts were made to harm me several times, but I would always escape. And I thanked Allah. Finally, a little doll came to our house. A pink, beautiful doll. Since the day she was born, my mother-in-law normalized. She would recite on her at night and in the morning. This way, my daughter started growing up. We named her Noor. Noor would often giggle while lying down. I paid no attention. Babies often giggle like that. And sometimes, she cried so intensely that it became difficult for us to console her. As she grew older, she kept playing alone. It felt like she was playing with someone. When she started speaking, she would express herself in garbled words. She would say, "Mama, those aunties are dirty." With her beautiful face, she would narrate it. "Which auntie?" When I asked, she would point to a corner. "That auntie." And, looking in that direction, I couldn't see anything. Sometimes she would say that my friends are calling me to play, and then get up and leave. The whole day, she would run around the house as if playing a game of tag. And she would talk to herself. "You pushed me. Come tomorrow. I'm angry with you. Everyone hide. I'll find you." Speaking like this, standing alone. My mother-in-law had forbidden me from asking Noor about anything. Otherwise, she would become frightened that what I see is not visible to my mother. This could have an impact on the child's mind. Indeed, there were children of the beings living in this house who used to play with her, and Noor was unaware of it. Noor had turned 4 years old. During those days, my mother-in-law's health deteriorated immensely, and then the same atmosphere of fear prevailed. My mother-in-law passed away. Before leaving, she advised me not to leave this house. "The beings here knew about you because of me. Now, they have developed a special affection for you, especially for Noor. They will not let any harm come to her." After my mother-in-law's passing, for many days, the presence of the beings felt in the house was not felt at all. It seemed as if they too had become melancholy and lost. I myself was very sad. For all this, that there was no longer anyone to read prayers in the morning and evening for my Noor, no longer someone to draw a protective circle. I used to recite some prayers myself, but there was a fear. It was a strange place. There was nothing there. Half of it was dark, and the other half was illuminated. White light. Noor was standing between both, meaning Noor's right side was in the light, and the left side was in darkness. Suddenly, a powerful forceps-like claw rose, and someone grabbed Noor from the left side, pulling her into the darkness. Before that, Noor's entire being was lost in darkness. A hand came from the side of the light and grabbed Noor's right hand. Now, the situation was such that she was being pulled towards the darkness at times and towards the light at other times. Noor was screaming desperately, "Save me, Mama." And suddenly, my eyes opened. I was drenched in sweat. I was also crying. I looked towards Noor. She was sleeping peacefully in front of me. I checked the clock. It was almost the evening prayer time. Oh my God, I had slept so deeply today at noon. The afternoon prayer was also missed. I was still thinking when suddenly the door of the room opened with a jerk, and as if something invisible grabbed Noor's foot and dragged her off the bed. My screams echoed. Before I could grab Noor, someone caught her leg and pulled her. Now, she was sliding out of the room, being dragged on the ground. Someone was pulling her, and Noor was screaming desperately. I chased after Noor. She was now in the courtyard. The situation was that Noor was being dragged forward, crying, her legs suspended in the air, and I was running behind her. Then it felt like I collided with something or something hit me. I fell to the ground with a thud. My closing eyes saw the last scene. Noor, sliding towards the open door in the courtyard, was going to the well. After that, darkness fell before my eyes. I kept running and running. There were pointed rocks under my feet. I don't know what kind of place it was. There was nothing beyond darkness. Viscous fluid was flowing from the feet, maybe blood, but I didn't care. At this moment, only my daughter was riding on my mind. Noor, Noor. Oh, someone bring my daughter to me. I kept screaming and running in different directions. Running, I stopped at one place. My Noor was lying far away from me. I reached her stumbling. Noor. I shook her. There was no movement. Noor. I took my hand to her nose to check her breath. She wasn't breathing. My heart started to close. Noor. I started shaking her violently. Mama. Suddenly, a sound emerged. I raised my head and saw that, despite some distance from Noor's body, Noor was still standing. I was astonished to see her when the same woman emerged from behind her. The woman who wanted to take her away. Then suddenly, she pressed Noor, and they disappeared into the darkness. Noor. I was running with all my might. Then, I started to hear Noor's voice from somewhere far away. Mama, Mama. Suddenly, I stumbled, and I fell into a deep pit. Along with it, my eyes opened. The voice was still coming, Mama. Mama. My Noor was leaning over me, shaking me. I held her in my arms. It felt like my blocked breath had come back to life. My husband and I were sitting there, bewildered by what was happening. He was completely unaware of all the events. According to him, when I came home, Noor was playing outside in the courtyard, and you were unconscious near the kitchen. However, the external door of the house was only closed, not locked. Whatever happened, Noor told us the next day in broken words that she could express. She tells us that they were bad aunties who used to scare me and were taking me away. Then, Uncle came, who lives in the upper house. Then there was a fight, and the bad auntie caught fire. Uncle had saved me. He said to tell Mama that the woman is dead. Mama, what does dead mean? After Noor explained the situation, I was relieved to know that she was gone. My husband was also astonished by all these events. We thanked Allah and prepared a lot of sweets and food, placing it on the upper floor in the next 2 or 3 days. This was our gratitude, which he accepted. Even today, the women of the neighborhood tell stories of people being seen in the upper floor of your house at night. It's a haunted house. Leave it. But I will never leave this haunted house. Because my husband, and my daughter have endless love for this haunted house and the ghosts here. For more hair-raising stories, hit the notification bell so you never miss the next descent into darkness. Until then, brave souls, may your nights be restless and your dreams haunted. Stay curious, stay frightened, and remember the next tale could be waiting just around the corner. This is HorrorTube, signing off from the realms where fear finds its voice. Good night and sweet nightmares.